and talk briefly about topic modeling. So this is sort of an unsupervised way of learning feature vectors. So we can discover sort of the latent structure of topics in a collection of documents. And this assumes, the assumption that we're making here is one, that every topic is distributed over the set of words, and then each document is distributed over a set of topics. So one technique for this is called LDA. It's also sort of a bag of words approach. So we're not considering order, but just sort of the words that appear in a document. And the way this is sort of works on a very sort of broad level is, first you're initializing by just picking a number of topics K, and then randomly assigning each word in a document to one of the K topics. And then through that, we'll refine it by looping through the documents and the topics and fixing all the probabilities except for the current probability of the word given the topic. And as we update that probability, we're gonna go from randomness to topics from term co-occurrence. And this is assuming that the documents are coherent in their topics. So this is sort of one way of topic modeling. And then to assign sort of meaning to those topics that you find, you can see sort of what terms are most common in those topics, like in the figure here on the right, where so we have gene, DNA, genetic in one of the topics, and brain, neuron, nerve. So we can kind of assign those topics broader sort of category names, or just use those commonly occurring words to define them. And then we'll talk briefly about word embeddings. I know this was Daniel went over this last week in the deep learning lecture, but we'll just briefly go over it again. So this is the idea of this is sort of representing words based on the words that surround them. So each term will become a vector in n dimensions. So sort of similar to autoencoding, we're kind of creating a vector or code to represent each of our tokens. And the sort of famous example of this is Word2Vec, which was published in 2013, where the input would be some large sequences of text. Then we'd have some encoding, which would be like a sparse Boolean vector, so one hot encoding. And then our output would be this dense n-dimensional embeddings for our words. And then the training for this can kind of happen in two different ways. One being this continuous bag of words approach, or CBAW, which given the context will predict the missing word. And then skipgram, which would be given the word, predict the missing context. And in practice, word embeddings can also be some like concatenation of the CBAW and skipgram representations. And the sort of two parameters that you can sort of set is, or the two main important parameters are like the context size C. So that would be like how many words are we considering around the word that we're embedding, and then the embedding dimension n. So how large is this vector that's representing these words? And like you saw last week, we can kind of perform some semantic arithmetic here, where like the vector of king minus the vector of man plus the vector of woman would be, closely equal to the vector of queen.